Thank you all for joining today's BC Hockey member video conference. Got a pretty full agenda, so we'll get started with that right away. Just to be advised, if any of your other members are unable to attend today's meeting, we will be recording this and putting it up on our YouTube later on. So to start off the meeting, I want to introduce BC Hockey CEO, Cam Hope. Cam.
Thanks, Keegan. I won't take much of your time. I think just want to make a few opening comments and mostly just acknowledge what odd times this is for hockey, for all of us. I've been on the job a few weeks now, and it's been awfully interesting, as you can imagine. The good part about it, I guess, is that hockey people are good people. And, you know, my need to go through this learning curve has been met with patience, not only here with the staff, but with everybody in the BC Hockey family, those of you I already know and those of you that I'm just getting to know. So thank you for that. And like all of you, the staff down here is doing a great job carrying a bit of an extra load these days and trying to make sure that we're able to deliver hockey in British Columbia as a collective in a way that's safe and enjoyable in the circumstances. Personally, you know, I think that our collective goal, of course, is to be delivering safe and positive hockey experiences for everybody in British Columbia that wants to play, but it's required us to focus acutely in this entire season, but really particularly in this last few weeks on safe participation. And as you all know, with the changing landscape, month to month, week to week, sometimes day to day, that means that it's important that we work together to be flexible and to have the ability to pivot when necessary. So I want to thank you for that. We're really lucky in British Columbia to have an organization like Viasport in our province, and we're going to hear from Jared directly here in a minute. But I do want to say that we've been especially thankful to have them this past week. As you all know, over the summer, when we were all planning and trying to see what hockey was going to be and how we were going to be able to deliver it this fall, we had that luxury of trying to imagine what to do and make plans. And Viasport was very helpful, and we all worked together. But that's a different animal than what happens in the middle of a season when there are changes. And so we're especially thankful to have you know, the thoughtful input from Viasport to get us through this situation where we have to react quickly to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our players. But hockey's doing really well in the circumstances. Everyone at BC Hockey here, of course, is working hard, but it's really thanks to everybody in the membership for being able to adapt on the fly. And I want to congratulate everyone who's on this call for the contribution that you're making in doing that. It's not easy when people's plans are changing, you know, coming up to a weekend, but we've been able to do a really good job in hockey, and I just want to acknowledge that. Finally, it's been, I guess, about 9 months now since our hockey lives have had an undisrupted weekend of enjoying the game the way we want to enjoy it. But we've learned in those 9 months that the people in hockey have really been and continue to be among the leaders in our community in communicating with each other and adapting to these challenges. So if there's one good thing that's coming out of this, is that we're learning a lot about ourselves and just how good the hockey community is at this. So even as things happen unexpectedly. So I want to thank all of you who are taking the time to be on this call today. And thank you for all of your understanding as we go through the changes that sometimes we have to communicate to you, and for your collaborative spirit. So I'll just turn it back to Keegan.
All right, thanks very much, Cam. And Cam alluded to Jared Kopp. He's the Director of Provincial Activation for Viasport. We just wanted to thank Jared for taking time out today to join us on our video call, as information has been coming very quickly, not only from the provincial government through Viasport, but to BC Hockey and then through on to our members. So we just wanted to bring the Jared on to provide an update or some of the updates from Viasport and what his organization is currently dealing with, and some of the clarifications on some of the definitions from our latest order. Jared, pass it over to you, and thank you again for joining us.
Great, thanks, Keegan, and thank you everyone for giving me a little bit of time to talk to all of you. I know that everyone's extremely busy, so I appreciate you being here today. So I wanted to spend some time talking a bit about the process of what happens behind the scenes, and especially with what has been happening over the last couple of weeks, because as Cam alluded to, there is a difference between all the planning that went into in the summer and into the fall for the start of the season compared to shifting on a seemingly day-to-day basis in the middle of a season, with information changing so quickly. So I want to start there and get into some of the updates as well, and also preface by saying I'm not going to have all the answers that I think and clarity that you would love to have today, but can tell you where we're at in the process as well. So a little bit about it, when there are increased numbers, as we've seen across the province, we know that restrictions need to come in place. They are announced, and we don't have full insight and visibility of what those restrictions are going to be. So when we saw the regional restrictions come in a couple weeks ago, they were announced, and then in that time, there's then something that's then put on the government website that I'm sure a lot of you have seen, and that is what is then being interpreted for how all the sport organizations need to shift and put in new practices. While that is happening, a written order is being developed. So so let's go to the announcement on Thursday. That was last Thursday of Dr. Bonnie Henry's announcement that there would be new restrictions across the province. Those then are put onto the website, and since that day that they were put on the website, they have been changing daily, even to the point that they were changed last night and then this morning. Now those changes don't affect hockey as much as some other sports, but we are working then as those changes come of what that means for sport in the meantime, while there's no written order in place. So there's no written order at this time. It is still being developed. We are working with health, public health and government to have that sport lens on it. And from what we know, we are experts in this area, but they have certain things that they need to see from their public health perspective. So we are working to have that order out, but it really is a public health decision of what that looks like. So in the meantime, sports are left with ever-changing information and then needing to make decisions on that. I really, right at this time right now, with the changes that happen so quickly, it's like they're treating government is treating like us like a race car, but we're actually a train, and we don't shift that quickly, and they are asking us to be really agile. It's not simple and it's not easy for us to shift, but and we share that with them, but on the other side, everything is leading to health right now. They are scrambling and they're doing as best they can to really curb our numbers and where we're at. So it is difficult on either side. I understand what health is trying to do. I also understand the impacts of what it does to our sector. And for you who are trying to just make sure that you have a good opportunity for the kids to play hockey in a really meaningful and safe way. So it is that balance back and forth. So that's something that we at Via Sport, we're continuing to do, is work with government and put those recommendations forward, advocate for sport, but also really work with what's coming from a public health side. Now, when that comes to how we work with the provincial sport organizations and BC Hockey, we are in constant communication with BC Hockey. for Cam, who's coming in and brand new, I don't think I've ever had to get to know someone so quickly and someone in a new position, just because there's been so much change over the last while. So what we do is, I am trying to provide as much information that what I know, and BC Hockey is also sharing the concerns and what everyone is facing within your membership. That helps me to be able to articulate those concerns into government, so that I have a good visibility on everything that's happening in the community. The other part of it is that BC Hockey, with there not being a written order in right now, they have to make decisions based off of the information that is ever evolving, and so those decisions are made, and with as much information as possible that they either get from Via Sport or for government, and then are put into place. That potentially has to change when the information is changed, because it is changing quite often. So that is the difficult part of managing all of this right now, and there being misinformation, different interpretations of from different sports. It becomes really convoluted and complicated, but wanting to reiterate that, from Via Sports side and from BC Hockey, we are doing everything we can with the information that we have, that we are also getting in real time and not always ahead of time. So that's a difficult position for all of us to be in. The other thing, and so in terms of actually what we now know in this moment, we are in phase 3. So phase 3 activities can occur, and that was a little bit confusing at first when that was announced last Thursday, based off of the regional restrictions for the lower mainland before that. So that, just want to be clear that phase 3 is happening right now. What the changes are is around travel and spectators. So spectators have been really clear. There's no spectators at this time. Okay, done. That's great. With the travel pieces, we all know that there has been complications and issues with the interpretations of, and there have been different there's been different verbiage coming from government, and because they are also trying to figure it out this time too. What we know right now is that we need to limit travel, and that there will be clarity when the written order comes out, and we do anticipate that to be coming out soon. The longest time, since the start of the pandemic, of when an order was announced by Dr. Henry to when it was in written form and published, is a week, and we're getting close to that now. So I think we are in around that time where we can anticipate seeing that written order. I will say though that because we have never been in this spot with the amount of numbers that we have in COVID cases, and just that things are changing so quickly, that there is more that goes into this written order than other iterations. So there are complications of it. In the meantime, BC Hockey had to make a decision of how they would want to interpret what was on the website, and so for individuals to get to their local association, and then staying within that local association, is within what we are seeing other sports do as well right now, with the information at hand. Other things I want to say, just give me a quick second. We anticipate that there will be more changes to come. We are seeing this evolve almost hourly right now, and so for everyone to kind of have that in the back of their heads, that with the information that we know now, when the written order comes out, we don't know exactly what it'll say. We don't know how we might have to shift. We probably will have to shift again. We don't know how long this is going to last for. In the order as it stands right now, it's December 7th. But we know that there is a high possibility that is extended past December 7th with further restrictions. We also know that government is learning quickly of how and where the transmissions are coming from and how the transmission is happening, and are asking us to shift. And a good example of that is, we didn't really, when we first published our phase 2 and phase 3 guidelines in the summer, travel was restricted, but it wasn't at the top of the list of concern. And now to see that they are okay with phase 3 activity, but are really restricting travel, it shows a shift in what they are seeing from a public health perspective, and then how we have to accommodate. In terms of mask use is now mandatory in public indoor spaces. We are looking for clarity on what that means for sport, in terms of the field of play or not. But stay status quo until we have that clarity is kind of good rule of thumb right now. And so we'll be continuing to work with BC Hockey over the days. I between Jeremy and Sean and Cam, we're on the phone all the time, and we'll via sport as we learn more. We'll continue to work with BC Hockey to be able to get your the information in your hands, and vice versa. They pick up the phone, and when there's concerns and there are some issues that you are seeing in your communities and in your minor hockey associations, they are being voiced to me, and I am using that information to be able to articulate some at least considerations of other ways of doing this work as well. So I'm really appreciative of that method and being able to get me this information, because I can't do my job without it. So let's continue to work in that way. Is there any other? Oh, and there's actually one more part there with coaches and officials. When we're talking about no travel, coaches and officials are under those that are working as compared to the sport part of the order. So if you are a coach or official, you can travel to your place of work or place to volunteer and freely. All we are asking at this time is, like, overall is, limit the amount of travel that you have to do. If you don't need to, don't do it, and keep that in mind for all activities. Keegan, that's it for me, but I'm more than happy to answer a question if there is any.
Right, great. Thanks very much, Jared. We'll try and see if there's any that come through and get back to you regarding that if there are any questions. But in the meantime, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time out to do that and explain some of the protocol that VIA Sport is going through, and for your efforts in getting us that information as quick as possible. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Raphael. He's got some comments, including some details regarding officiating clinics. Sean.
Thanks, Keegan, and thanks, Jared. Appreciate that. And just before touching in on officiating clinics and coaching clinics here, just want to reiterate, the importance of the relationship that is built between VIA Sport and BC Hockey, and appreciate Jared's input on everything. And he's been here sort of step by step with us, assisting us in the best way to address all of the new developments. So it's been very valuable, and things are ever changing. So we really appreciate the patience of our members, and really encourage, with so many of us out there dealing with this at varying levels, to really utilize, if you're at the local association level, utilize your district association. We're still meeting regularly with the district associations, but use your district association first and foremost as a sounding board for comments, concerns, interpretation challenges, because then we can best vet those through our member engagement process and make sure that they continue to get into in front of Jared for assistance as well. So, but moving into clinics specifically, I'm going to touch on officiating first and then pass it along to Dave Cunning for coaching. But just a bit of an update here on where we're at with clinics. So new officials clinics, these are continuing. We launched these at the beginning of November, and we've been doing our best to keep up with them. As of today, everything that has been requested by a local association for delivery has been processed and is available for registration in the format that they requested. The new officials clinics are continued with a U9 category, which is the new pilot for officials that are coming in at 11 years old or older, and allows them to have a bit of a modified introduction into officiating that comes at a lower cost, a little bit lower training, and then reserves them for U9 programming, a bit of a pilot and a recruitment tool. So this is training that is delivered locally through the Minor Hockey Association. And then we also have the level 1-2 first year official clinic option, which is the traditional age categories of 12 to 15 for level 1, 16 plus for level 2. And similar to the U9 train, there is a prerequisite of the online course for officiating, where you get the vast majority of the basic fundamentals, as well as the planning a safe return to hockey online course. And then the curriculum is delivered in about 3.5 hours. These are still being delivered in person. The U9 is a shorter curriculum, but the level 1-2 new officials, the components of the in-person curriculum fit also within the guidelines that we're working under for sport that Jared mentioned. They're all being delivered at the association level, which fits our current understanding of community, similar to a player going to his local association for practice, clinics, and most of them are requiring that ice time or having that ice time provided, are considered training, and the officials are meeting within normal meeting guidelines and at your local association. So as a training sport activity, we're able to proceed. That being said, we know that some communities have run into some challenges with access to facilities that they may have arranged previous sort of to this new order. And if any associations have clinics that they're looking to defer a date to, just feel free to correspond with our clinic staff or myself at the office, and we can accommodate those changes within the registration process. And the last element of the officiating clinics to update on are the returning official clinics. So these have been running since late September. This is online delivery. So knowing that the mass majority of our officials are returning officials, we've taken the online model to try and avoid the necessity to meet in person as much as possible through this season. So that's level 1, 2, and 3 that are utilized at the local level. It has the prerequisite online course, criminal record check as always for our officials that are 18 years or older. It's a 2.5-hour condensed curriculum that is easily deliverable online this year and has the specific protocols for this season and the new rules. And there are only a few clinics remaining. So to date, we've run just under 40 different clinics online, and numbers are still coming in regularly on a daily basis, but we've certified overall close to 3,000 officials. And the remaining dates, we have our next online clinic tomorrow. It's one of our evening offerings and midweek options. This coming weekend, we have an 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. classes for level 1, 2, and 3, again, all online. That is going to be our last weekend offering at this point, and our last scheduled clinic has a little bit of a longer break for anybody else that needs to get this done before we head into the holiday season. But December 9th, 6 p.m. is our last currently scheduled clinic opportunity, and we'll be doing an assessment at that time to see what we may need for anything in the future. Generally speaking, we do meet mid-December as our end of clinic season, but knowing the nuances of this year, we'll definitely evaluate any needs that may push into early 2021. So that's the basic update here on the clinics within officiating, and I'll pass it over to Dave here to update with coaching.
Thanks, Raf. Appreciate that. I'm just gonna zip through the coaching side of this as well. So as an update in general here, so far from October, we have offered 46 clinics total, offering over 3,000 seats opportunity there. Right now, we're only seeing 46.3% of that capacity utilized by our coaches. Interestingly, so 1,400 and change registered for our Coach 1, Coach 2, and Development 1 delegates to date in those clinics. And overall, compared to last year, we're seeing a 72% return compared to last year in this online format, which now all clinics are delivered 100% online via Zoom. We made that switch. We had some of our part twos initially in person in the Lower Mainland and some other areas, and prior to the on the heels of Dr. Henry's announcement, we just switched everything right over to the online format, and we're moving ahead with that. Just noticing the trend in some of those percentages, we're really seeing the competitive level coaches coming back almost exactly what they were last year, but comparatively, some of our rec level coaches, the ones in Coach 1 and Coach 2, only around half. So it seems to be a trend where our competitive level guys are keeping up, and there may be less demand or less interest almost in registration for the lower level. So since October 10th, we've done 35, and we've got 11 coming up overall. All are registered or available to be registered for at ehockey.hockeycanada.ca. So I'm going to break that down a little bit into each clinic and their specifics. So in Coach 1, we've put out 11 on the board here and had over 300 registered to date. Comparatively, like I alluded to before, only 44% as compared to last year there. We're done 9 of those 11 that I mentioned, and we've had 240 come through so far. Kind of our last chances here are upcoming here on the 25th and 28th for Coach 1 clinics. And this is just as a reminder, required for all assistant coaches of U7 and U9. Coach 2. Same sort of idea here. We've offered 12 and had over 300 delegates to date so far. And again, we're right around the 50% mark for Coach 2 as compared to last year. So far done of those 12, 10, and we've seen 392 delegates so far. I don't think that's right, sorry, but upcoming, we have 2 left, basically the same dates there for Coach 2. And kind of our last chances for those as we wrap those up. Again, Coach 2 required for heads and assistant coaches of U11, as well as the recreational streams of U13, U15, and U18. The one that's a little more convoluted here, Dev 1 in Part 1 and Part 2, but so far we've had 9 Part 1s offered and seen 464 come through the Part 1, and we've got 14 either done or coming up in Part 2. So far, we've seen 263 registered delegates through that stream. So overall, this is what I kind of mentioned before. We're right at about 95% and nearly at 100 of what we saw last year. So Development 1 and competitive stream coaching remains strong. So we're done 8 online ones for Part 1. We did do 6 in-persons for Part 2, and then we shifted right to online. We've done 2 already, and coming up now, we've got 1 last Part 1, kind of a last chance there, and then 6 Part 2s coming up on the dates there, end of November and beginning into middle of December. So if you have coaches on the levels noted there, remember they've got to get through that very, very soon, and they have to get both. It's not good enough to do just Part 1. If you don't couple Part 1 and Part 2, you will have that designation removed for next year. So just please encourage your coaches to make sure they are doing both. Just additional clinics here for check-in clinics, which we again shifted entirely online in the Hockey University platform. We've seen 458 come through since September, and that's again around the 50% mark. So for the coaches noted on the right there, all have to complete that for those roles. For our online Coach 1, Coach 2, this is being a prerequisite course for Coach 1 and Coach 2, 897 dating back to April 1st and through here, which is around 65%. So again, kind of in unison with what we've seen at the recreational level, pretty close to it anyway. We have plans to host at least one hopefully 2 We Are coaches. To that point, we've seen 1 graduate come through Hockey Canada's Women's Master Coach Developer Program just recently. Was one of our facilitators through our clinics here, and is now in the stages of becoming certified and capable of running one of these clinics. So we're hopeful it will see that emerge in 2021. And just as a note, as mentioned before by our policy, we want to get all those Coach 1, Coach 2, and Dev 1 coaches through what they need by December 15th. So that is it for me, and I'll pass it back to Keegan.
Great, thanks, Dave. And thanks to all for entering the questions in the chat. BC Hockey will, as we mentioned, be posting this on our YouTube page along with an updated FAQ once we have the formal provincial orders from Dr. Henry's office, as Jared mentioned. But I will pass it back to Sean Raphael to address some of the questions regarding community and how it currently stands as it relates to hockey.
Thanks, Keegan. And again, appreciate everybody's understanding to what Jared was speaking about, sort of the fluidity of this whole process. And as we go, having further defined terminology. Community has been a word that did change recently since Thursday in the communication or documentation that is online. So the best way that BC Hockey has interpreted that to suit our members is first and foremost, the community would be considered your local minor hockey association or your member team, and the member team more pertaining to those zone-based type teams or junior teams as an example. Further to that, the emphasis, and Jared alluded to this, that health is really identified is the key thing that they're trying to reduce is travel, and in particular team travel. So we know we run into a lot of challenges in defining community as your association. Some people might just live outside of, quote, what would be a municipal community, but they're to where their association is, or maybe an association due to ice availability might use a neighboring community's ice. So the key thing here is that individuals can travel to where their association or member team is delivering the programming, because it's being done through their association or member team, which is the community as defined now. We have to be nimble or prepared to be a little bit agile when the full order comes out, if there is maybe further considerations to this definition. But using some of the examples we've seen, if you maybe live in New Westminster and your association programming may be delivering some ice in Burnaby, say at the Burnaby Barn, the 8 rinks there, that is being delivered by your community member, and that is fine. You may also be somebody who lives in Sydney and you're with Victoria Minor Hockey, and although municipally you may live in a different area than your association, but your association is delivering in Victoria City, and you can participate with your association because your association right now is being defined as your community. So to try and keep communications as simple as possible in this transition process as we await the written order, that's how BC Hockey's interpreted it to best guide our members. Again, we may see things evolve, and we need to be prepared for those adjustments, but that's the best way for us to interpret things at this time. And then of course, phase 3 activity with your member association is permitted. So hopefully that addresses some of the general concerns there. It's difficult for us to fully address everything as we still await the full written order, as Jared alluded to. And of course, we'll work with that as soon as it comes, and appreciate your patience as all of that gets assessed as well. And I'll pass it back to Keegan here just in closing.
Great, thanks very much, Sean, and appreciate everyone for taking the time out to join us today. As we mentioned, we will post this video for anyone that was not able to attend. Do our best to answer all those FAQs and forward any pertinent information that we receive from VIA Sport directly to our membership as soon as it becomes available. And we appreciate everyone's flexibility and understanding at this time with the fluidity of the information. Again, thank you all, and we will send an invite to our next member engagement meeting when it is scheduled, and hope that everyone has a great day. Thank you.